No funny intro this morning because unfortunately there is absolutely nothing funny about losing to Tottenham. This is today's Arsenal Transfer Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back with you all this morning, every single day, of course, 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for doing so. I understand the mood's probably a little bit lower than it's been over the last few weeks. I say that, transfer windows are driving people crazy, but it's not a particularly nice morning when you wake up and you have to talk about the aftermath of a defeat in whatever context. I don't care if it's a friendly, quite frankly. These games they still mean something. The innate tribalism of football and the passion that we have for our club, for Arsenal, means that any defeat in any context to Spurs is never, ever something to be smiling about. And it's something that to take very seriously. But we're going to talk about the game. We're going to talk about some of the broader context of the news surrounding, of course, the game as well. We're going to jump into the chat box as usual and get some of your thoughts, some of your feelings, some of your queries and questions. But I should tell you that it's going to be a slightly more condensed show today. I have an appointment around 8:45. So, not brilliantly timed today, but we should still get half an hour of content in with you. And I'm going to try and rattle through as much of part one as I can so that I can get to as many of your points, as many of your questions as feasibly possible this morning. So do drop a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new. We are on our way now to 66,000 subscribers. So if you could help us out, I really would appreciate it. Lee, good morning to you, to Matt, to Louis, to Spearmint. Good morning to you guys in the chat box. Matt G, Langdon. We've got Martin and Scouse Gooner, Natty Tom, Edison, Christopher. Good morning to Glenn and Steve, Aiden and Oda Relay. Good morning to Mohammed and Black Shine, Arasulki, Jakob, Wayne and Franklin. Good morning to you all. Shari, Brad, I see you in the chat as well. Thank you so many of you for tuning in. It is greatly appreciated indeed, as always, that it is to see so many of you in the chat. Do drop a like, do subscribe, all the usual YouTube-y stuff. So yes, let's not waste any more time and let's jump into today's slides. And we begin, of course, with the aftermath of the game from yesterday, with Arsenal being beaten by North London rivals Spurs 1-0 in Hong Kong. Not ideal, not nice, not enjoyable. It wasn't a particularly good game for either team. And to be on the losing side of it, of course, will only raise questions. And there are plenty of questions that we've got to ask and that I'm going to try and answer as well, I imagine, from you all as well. But it was in terms of the tour overall, it's productive, building up fitness, integrating some new players, and of course giving fans abroad plenty more exposure to their team that they support. But if we just focus in on the football, of course, there were some concerns to a degree. Now, I will preface this, as I say, pre-season games are pre-season games. It's very difficult to analyze pre-season matches anywhere near in the same way that we can analyze proper competitive matches, because there are so many different unknowns about preseason games. We aren't going to see the lineups that we see in these games too regularly, although yesterday's game was probably one that we might see more often next season, or this upcoming season. We start with how we conceded in this game, because as I say, I'm tired by time today, so I want to rattle through extended highlights. But it's a great goal, and you've got to respect the shot. But I will say, and I don't want to be that guy, but I will be that guy here, it wouldn't have counted. There's absolutely no way this goal goes down, of course. Richarlison does foul Miles Lewis-Skelly in the build-up to this, and VAR would have ruled it out. But we have to think about the naivety, I think, of David Raya passing the ball into those. But his positioning doesn't bother me too much, because he is asked to do this. It's not his fault he's in that position specifically. He is in that position because that is what he is asked to do. That is where he is asked to play. So if we want to be critical, we need to be critical of the manager, of the goalkeeper coaches, and the strategy there, more so than Raya for his position. However, his pass and his decision to pass into Miles Lewis-Skelly with so many players around him, that's where the criticism for me falls then on David Raya in that moment. But yes, it arguably should not have counted, and it would have been ruled out in real time. But it is obviously a moment where high risk, high reward, high risk and high reward sort of flips on its head with a risky pass and the opposite of a reward coming. A high risk just being high risk in this case. And yes, it's a great finish, and yes, it makes it look a bit silly. But if there was ever going to be a winning goal in this game that really didn't produce too many massive opportunities, it probably was going to come from something being akin to a mistake. And that's obviously what we saw from Arsenal that led to the goal. And Saka was without a doubt, our right-hand side was our main threat. We were significantly lent towards attacking down the right. Saka, I think, was fouled more than 7 times in the game as Spurs doubled and tripled up on the talismanic figure on that right-hand side. And he was threatening, and he did create chances and did get into some threatening positions, but he himself never really had a big moment to score, Saka himself. And that's because, obviously, we're in a situation where clubs like to double and triple up on Saka and suffocate him out, and we aren't quick enough at moving the ball to other players. We need to be getting the ball more dangerously and more quickly into those areas. And I think the fact that Martin Zubimendi didn't start this game was quite telling, actually. And the fact that we had Norgard in that position, who is going to be, ostensibly the number 2 to Zubimendi this season, and we expect Zubimendi to be the starting number 6, who is of a significantly higher level of that than, the number 2s that we would have had regardless of whether Jorginho was sold, Jorginho or Norgard. Zubimendi is of a level above these quite considerably. And I think we lacked that presence of Zubimendi. When he came off the bench, it was immediate, the impact that he had. And we already looked a lot more in control, a lot more dominant, a lot more precise and progressive in our passing. But our right-hand side is just so heavily weighted right now that the left-hand side, it's lacking. And we have to talk about that left-hand side. Now, I know it's really easy to sit there and say, and we have sat there and say, and I have sat there and said that I'd happily bring in a new left winger, and we need to try and find an upgrade on the left-hand side. And, Eze might help with that. Madueke yet could help with that. And a new signing might help with that. But I think it's really quick to jump and say, let's just sell Martinelli and bring in XYZ player and assume that suddenly solves these problems. I was listening to James B's analysis yesterday after the game. It popped up on my timeline. And I think James is absolutely spot on. I think James is absolutely spot on here. And that's that we can talk about however many signings that we need. We can talk about how many players we'd love to have. We can talk about how many signings we have made and could still make. But there is still a coaching issue here. There is still a element this isn't just about pre-season. This is about last season. This is about how Arsenal lacked threat down their left-hand side and how heavily weighted we are to the right. Our most creative midfielder is always pinned more so to creation on the right-hand side. Declan Rice is not that type of midfielder. And while he offers us a lot of quality down the left, we are incredibly isolated. Ben White is a lot more of a supportive aspect of a fullback than Miles Lewis-Skelly, who inverts and gives the midfield support. But whoever it is on the left, Martinelli or Trossard or Rodrigo or Rafael Leao, whoever it is that is in that left-hand corner, they are, in this system, more isolated. And when they get into those spaces, they are tasked with trying to beat a player or beat 2 players or get a ball into the box if we can get lucky, or cut the ball back to a fullback or a left centre-half like Kivior who might ping the ball into the box. We need to have more variety. That, for me, is the key word, is we lack variety in our attack at times. And Arteta spoke after the game in his post-match press conference and talked again about how he was mostly happy with what he saw. He was mostly happy with the performance. Let me see if I can find you the exact quote. I'm very pleased with what I've seen in most of the things that we've done, but we miss something in certain moments, that preciseness, that moment that unlocks the result, the moment to turn the result our way and with the match. I feel like I've heard that quote from Arteta for about 12 months at least, that we are mostly good. We are mostly dominant. It was 16 shots to 6, I think. But those 16 shots, the quality of those chances, the quality of those shots has been left lacking. Now, We don't know the impact of what Gyokeres will have when he finally gets going. We'll talk about him a little bit more in a second. We don't know what Noni Madueke is going to do. We don't know what, if we sign Eberechi Eze, what impact that might have. We don't know. But if he's pleased with certain aspects of the performance, I can only assume that he is pleased with the build-up to the point where we're almost creating chances. But I feel that we have been hearing kind of similar things, and I'd be interested if I could go back from now, a year from now, and find a quote quite similar. In fact, I plan on doing so ahead of kind of press conferences next week, because you can't be saying the same things about we're lacking the preciseness, we're lacking this thing in the final third a year later. You can't be saying those things, because we need to see growth. We need to see improvement. Now, yes, I want to stress, this is a pre-season game. This is a pre-season game. And there is other aspects to this. The 2 games against the Spanish clubs next week, they will tell us a lot more about where we are at, where we're playing at the Emirates, we're playing, closer to the start of the season, match fitness is there. We're not dealing with some horrific officiating in the same ways. We still might have some of that this season, but certainly not that. We're playing that. Those 2 games for me is what will give us the biggest indication about where we are at as a club going into the new campaign. Of course, Madueke is going to be involved. Gyokeres is going to be more involved. We'll have more of, more of what we expect. But Trossard also going off with an injury. It's not a good sign. We don't know how serious it is. Hopefully, it's just a knock. We heard that Kepa, is just a knock, and that's not a problem. And also that Calafiori, Gabriel, and Timber hopefully will also be fine for the start of the season, which is also a really, really, really good boost. But there are problems, and I am worried about our left flank. And I'm worried regardless of signings, by the way. I'm not talking about, I'm worried about our left-hand side and signing Rodrigo solves everything. I don't think it does. I think there is a fundamental structural system issue with our left-hand side that's been in play for a while now. So, because it doesn't change. It doesn't change whether Trossard plays, doesn't change whether Martinelli plays, and even Nelson looks a bit more lively right now. It doesn't change. And that means it's a systematic issue, not a personnel issue. Gyokeres did come off the bench, of course, and had 1 touch and created 1 chance. So in the very little that we've had to see of our brand new striker, he only got 1 moment on the ball. And in that moment, he created a goal scoring opportunity, which, of course, Zubimendi should have done better with the opportunity that fell to him. He did quite well with the chance that fell to him on his chest that was just deflected over. That was a very good attempt in the position that he was at with the type of chance that it was. But, I can't sit here and analyse Gyokeres' performance off that. It's impossible. So we'll see a lot more of him next week against Villarreal Athletic Club. But that it bodes well. That's all I'll say. It bodes well, the little that we did see of him. But yeah, it's on Arteta to find the answers. That's kind of where I'm at with the game. It's on him to find the answers. And this season, there's a lot of expectation. It's a lot on expectation. It's not for me a personnel issue. I think Corey, you're wrong. You say it's a personnel issue. Let's call it a spade. I don't think it's a personnel issue. Arsenal have a good team. Arsenal have got very good players. And we've got depth now, strength in depth across the board. And this season is going to be about evolution. It's going to be about being better than what we have been last season, definitely, because we've got players available. What we did last season was, to me, astonishing, really, with the players that we lacked, and still managed to finish with what we finished with. But this season, with the depth, with the signings made, there's no excuses. That phrase comes up a lot, no excuses. But there is no excuses here at the start of this season. The players that are out injured, we were expecting them to be back. Other than Trossard, we don't know. We don't have indication about that yet. But people get so obsessed with transfers, so obsessed with this idea that X player solves this problem and this player solves this problem. But as soon as you fit those players into this system, it's going to be limited by what we ultimately and how we play. Now, I know from watching Arsenal in the 23-24 season that this team is very, very capable under this manager of producing some fantastic performances, dominant performances, clinical performances. But we need to now see that this season. And teams have changed. Teams are changing. They adapt to us. They change the way they play against us. And we have to consider that. Absolutely. We have to think about that 100%. But we need to find the answers. Arteta needs to find the answers. Just a little bit of transfer news before we go into part two. And that is, of course, around Eberechi Eze, who is the main focus, of course, of Arsenal's attention towards the end of this window. And Eze's clause expires today. We told you, we reported this week that the clause would expire before the Premier League season starts. And Sammy Mokbel confirming that indeed this is where we're at. Today is the day the clause expires. Now, there is not an expectation Arsenal will activate the clause. In fact, it's pretty well known that Arsenal have no intention of paying the release clause, but that they will engage in conversations with Palace over a deal for Eberechi Eze. And now, without that clause active, a negotiation can take place and a lot more of kind of an open discussion without Palace having that release clause to kind of point to. So let's wait and see what happens with Eze. But it's not a deal that will happen quickly. And I imagine it'll be a deal that that kind of goes into August and quite significantly into August. So let's see what happens. But we're not expecting like a hike in price or anything like that after the clause expires. That's not what we are expecting. Let's go to part two, shall we? And go to some of your thoughts and questions over the next 15 minutes or so right after this. Now, just before I go into part two and your questions, I want to bring your attention to a piece of content that I've helped to produce on the Mirror, which is a Arsenal 25-26 unofficial season guide. There's 48 pages of analysis, opinion and stats, and spotlights on every Premier League team and fixtures as well. Oh, hold on. Mic off. Why's the sound gone? Oh, that's so strange. I didn't change anything. That's so odd. I should be back now. It should be right. The microphone's changed. I don't know why. I should be back now. But yes, certainly. Just let me know I am back. I'm hoping I am. I don't know why it would have disappeared. The audio. Can you hear me? Yes. No. Let me know. Back. It's back. Okay. Cool. We're fine. Yeah. So I just want to tell you and bring your attention towards a bit of content that we've produced with the Mirror. It's 48 pages of analysis, opinion and stats, spotlight on every Premier League team and the fixtures for the season. If you would like a copy of it, ahead of the season, of course, I helped to produce this. Did some insights on Viktor Gyokeres, Mikel Arteta, all of Arsenal's summer signings so far, and a kind of preview of the season as a whole, the expectations around what's going on. If you would like to buy a copy, they're £3.50 plus shipping. The link to do that is in today's video description. So there is worldwide shipping. It is obviously a little bit more expensive if you live further abroad that you live, but that's there. If you'd like to get a copy, it's available to pre-order now before the season comes out. And I think they're available in kind of shops and supermarkets and stuff like that from the 6th of August. So yes, there is shipping overseas, Samuel, if you'd like to get a copy, but I think abroad shipping can get a little pricey, so do check that before you do it. It's scene audio and settings. Reason for it. I don't get why the audio changed. I've got the microphone selected and I'd clicked the mid-roll credits and it flipped over to a different microphone. No idea. Very strange. No idea why that happened. Never happened before that. All right, let's go to some of your questions then. AJ, thank you so much for the kind donation, who says, I don't care about the loss as much as the performance. And then there's the tendency of Arteta wanting to self-destruct. Explain to me why Saka played 70 minutes, Tom. It's this, okay, AJ, and I mean this with all the love and respect in the world. Anyone moaning about Saka playing 70 minutes, I can't understand why you're moaning. I really don't. This is pre-season. It's about building up fitness. It's about building up match readiness. Saka played 70 minutes. It's about getting that. Like, I really found that strange, how many people were like, why is Saka still on the pitch? Because it's pre-season. It's our third game of pre-season. It's about, look, if we were like 5-0 up in a game in the Premier League, 10 games into the season, and he's keeping Saka on, go hell for leather. Criticise it all you like. I'd back you 100%. But 3 pre-season games in, we need to build up fitness and match readiness ahead of the new season in our starting players. Absolutely, Saka should be playing about 70 minutes. It's just, it's nuts. I can't believe some people really fall into these traps and the hyperbole around that. I know Saka went down. He was being fouled. He gets fouled every game. He goes down pretty much every game. It's very normal. He got a bit of a dead leg. He got a kick in the side of his quad and went down and was fine to carry on. I really don't understand at all why anyone would moan about Saka playing as many minutes as he did. It's really strange the lack of understanding there is around what happens in pre-season. It's very, very strange. But I agree with EK here. I agree that I found it odd that Nwaneri didn't play. That was weird because I think Nwaneri's had a really good pre-season so far. And the fact that he didn't play, maybe he wasn't fully ready. Maybe he had a kick in training or a knock and they didn't want to risk him. I don't know. But it was odd that Nwaneri didn't play. That was strange. And you get weirdos like Classic Gooner saying Arteta hates Nwaneri. Obviously, this is not true. He played him 37 times last season. But it was odd that Nwaneri didn't play. Maybe there was something beyond that to think about. Michael says Saka should not be playing the amount of minutes he plays. He'll end up... I don't know where people get this from. Like, are these people like sports scientists? Like, they're ignoring the fact that it's like... I don't get it. It's really strange. It's really odd how people think they're some kind of experts in how many minutes you need to give players during pre-season and they think they know better. It's really odd. It's pre-season. It's literally about building up minutes, building up the regular. I think Ben White played the whole game in this fixture because he's going to have to play a lot of 90-minute games. You need to get the readiness in your legs to play that amount of football. It's so odd. Such a strange one. Dale says Trossard and Martinelli combined for 16 goals. Saka and Nwaneri combined for 10 goals. The left side not creating the chances for the right side potentially as well. I mean, it's difficult to kind of put Nwaneri into the same category as Saka here. Martinelli and Trossard are on a different plane of seniority to him. Saka was missing for 4 months last season. Nwaneri missed a month of action in January as well and didn't play all that often even when he wasn't there. Eventually, we started using Martinelli on the right as well. So it's very strange to think about those comparisons right now. I don't think it's necessarily relevant. Anthony says, Tom, in my opinion, what I saw yesterday is that Arteta is not ready to set up tactically different, which is exposing our inability to create from other angles, such as the left and sometimes the need to change things. I disagree in the sense of it's what I saw yesterday. It's what I've seen over the last year beyond. You know, our left-hand side at the moment, the system that we play, there is a weightedness to our right-hand side and it makes us more predictable and it makes us easier to defend against. We need more variety. That's the key word for me. We need more variety. Now, is that going to come from the changes that we make with the personnel that are coming? Is that going to change with Madueke being on the left? Is that going to change with Eze potentially coming in? We will have to wait and see. But I don't think it's as much a personnel issue as it was more a tactical and system issue. I think that's more about the system than it is about the personnel. So those of you that you see kind of videos popping up saying, we need to sell Martinelli, cash in on Martinelli, it comes from a FIFA career mode place of thinking. You need to look beyond the personnel here because at the end of the day, if you're swapping parts out into a machine that isn't utilizing its full potential and isn't using one side more so than the other, you know, you need to think about that. It's not going to work in the same way. Matthew says we looked poor at defending corners yesterday. I thought that we were generally okay, but we have to be something. Yeah, it was a bit of an issue there. Like they hit the post. They were very good corners. Sometimes you do come up against teams that's very good at set pieces, and Thomas Frank's teams tend to be very good at set pieces. But I do agree with you. There was a vulnerability there. Here we go. Classic, keep making excuses. I mean, I've literally sat here and criticised Arteta's system for the whole show, pretty much. But it's time, I think. It might be time to get out the bingo card. Do we think it's time to officially unveil our bingo card? I'm pretty sure I was sent it. Let me see if I can find it. I thought I was sent it on here. I might get out for tomorrow. I'm really tight for time today. But tomorrow, I think we'll officially unveil our bingo card for people like Classic Gooner, who are classic in the way they just always make themselves look silly. Kieran says, whilst we shouldn't overreact to a game determined by a goal that would be disallowed in the Premier League, I'm worried about how poor Martinelli has been. Nelson has looked much better. I will say that Nelson has a habit of doing this in pre-season. does tend to always have kind of a pre-season boost, if you like. Benny says, we actually did change tactically. I haven't seen us play that many long balls. There was the difference there. I will admit that, Benny. I think you are right. There was a variation in the way we went long ball a few times, more so in the first half. We didn't really do it as much in the second half. I think as soon as we conceded, it almost stopped. Like, as soon as we conceded the first goal and went a goal down, we kind of stopped doing that, which was a bit odd. So I would have liked to have seen more of that to kind of beat the Spurs press and get in behind. And Saka was benefiting from those balls in behind as well. But yeah, I'll get the bingo card out tomorrow, people. I promise. I've got a little bit tight for time today to be searching around for it, and I've got it saved in a folder. I just need to find it. Paul says the starting lineup lacked creativity. We aren't defending set pieces well, and yet again we conceded the first goal. How do we address these issues to get us to be our best selves? As I said, the next two games, Villarreal, Athletic Club, they're going to give us our indication about where we really are at. It's difficult to it's easy to overanalyze these games, but let's wait and see where we're at after these next two kind of friendlies. That's what we want. Sanyik says, what are your thoughts on our lack of fast build-up play in the attack? It seems our slow build-up makes it easy for the low block opposition. Some pattern from last year, is it worrying? Yes, we need to be quicker. It's a worry. Definitely. There's always an emphasis on control. Like, there's an emphasis on controlling the ball. But because we lack so much threat at times, which we hope will change with Gyokeres, of course, because we lack so much threat and clinicalness and just the ability to turn a nothing moment into a goal, we're quite passive in that way. And so we'll control and control and control. But then we look so vulnerable when we lose the ball, like we did, of course, yesterday. So that is something that we need to think about. Aoife says, hi, Tom, I disagree. If the system is going to isolate the left wing, then we must get one who thrives in those conditions. And that, but it's not as simple as saying we just go and bring in a player that's good in one-on-one situations, problem solved. Because if the left winger is isolated, but they're not getting service, that's still a systematic issue. It's not just about those players being isolated. It's about the volume of service that those players are also getting. So it doesn't matter if you've got a player that's good in one-on-one situation, because if they're not getting the ball, they can't even utilize that skill. So again, it doesn't work. Nifty says the meltdown on the timeline was a joke. No, it always is. Most times an Arsenal meltdown is a joke. And it's pre-season. So yeah, some of the things that were said on different platforms was mental. But there is definitely criticisms and objective kind of just analysis to be had about yesterday's game, because there are issues that are there that have existed before, but you do so with the proviso that you don't go over the top and that this is a preseason game, and we have to consider that fact as well. Like people moaning about Saka playing 70 minutes. They're the type of silly opinions that we ignore and we shouldn't really be paying too much attention to, because they are silly, because this is pre-season. It's all about building up match readiness and match fitness. But if we're talking about the issues with creativity and build-up and the clinicalness of our finishing, of course, with the 16 shots that we had, Martinelli had a great opportunity to score, didn't take it. Those moments are important. So Mendy had a good chance to get a shot on target, didn't get it on target. Like, these moments are things where we need to change. These are moments where we need to get more efficient, and that's fair to talk about. Let's go to, I do get a little bit bored of kind of trolls in the chat box, so you can go. Martin says you can have the best player in the world on the left. If they don't get the ball, they can't do much with it. Exactly. Sports Beast is my question. Declan is more creative. The answer is big no. So what are we expecting? The same as Marino. We need Curtis Jones there. I don't have Curtis Jones, so what's the problem over Declan Rice, mate, to be honest. Ian says, Harry is right. The midfield needs Rice and Zubimendi in tougher games. Norgard isn't good enough based on preseason. If anyone is watching preseason going, Norgard's not good enough, and I don't know what Harry said, but if it's been said that based on preseason, Norgard's, I'm sorry. He impressed against Milan. He was good against Newcastle in the bit that we saw him. I don't really get the Norgard hate. I mean, I get it because Arsenal fans have a tendency to overreact, but it's a bit strange. It's a bit strange. The guy's in pre-season. He's at a new club playing a different system, and to be jumping on him now, it's just wrong. This is what it is. It's just wrong. Aoife says, yesterday reinforces that certain players maximise the system, like Mendy, who makes us play forward faster. Is it not a worry that if he's injured, we're going to see a repeat of last year? I think that it's a worry that if, and Zubi, I don't know if there's any issue with Zubi's fitness. It's just about kind of building up the readiness. You have to remember Zubi he played in the Nations League, so he came back later as well. So you've got those games that are already in his legs. So it's about giving them that adaptation and the build up to fitness. I don't think there's any issue with Zubi's fitness, and that's not why he didn't start yesterday. You know, there was others that didn't start as well. I would have rather Trossard started, but maybe there was a fitness issue before the game as to why he didn't start as well. Kingsley says, Tom, is it also fair to say that we use the right side more because the personnel there is also better? When we had Jesus, Xhaka, Zinni, we used the left more. All of them was very... I mean, there's definitely a factor there. Yeah, you know, I think it would be naive to say that when you've got a player at the level of Saka that you would use him less than Martinelli. So yeah, there's definitely a factor there. But there is a very, very, very obvious weighting that goes beyond just the level of the player that exists there. But I am conscious of the time now, so I do need to hop off. Sorry for the slightly shorter show, and thank you so much as always for tuning in. Do appreciate your listenership as always. If you could drop a like on the video, I'll be back with you, of course, tomorrow morning, rounding up any of the latest transfer news from today, updates around Eze, the situation with the left winger, further injury news, of course, as well, surrounding the players, of course. The players are flying back home today from Singapore. They'll be flying back to London today. So 1st of August, we're in the month of the Premier League starting, not long left. 2 more pre-season games, and then it's Old Trafford. So lots still to come. Thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.